All right, and we're live. This is the Band of Bards Comics Chat. I'm Tim, and I'm joined by Kurt Sasso of Two Geeks Talking. Hey, Kurt.
How's it going, Tim? It's this is a new transition because you've been on Two Geeks Talking multiple times in the past. So now I get to be on the side that you're normally on during interviews. So I think this will be a fun chat.
This is going to be fun. It's always interesting to kind of flip back and forth between the two sides, and I think I've gotten used to like being on both. Still not good at either, but it's definitely a fun thing to experience from both sides.
Yeah, keeps you sharp.
For sure. All right. Let me go just checking out all the feeds here to make sure it's coming through okay for everybody. Looks like Twitch and YouTube is working. Oh my god. Oh my god. Oh, the worst part is when you pop up like a YouTube to the YouTube channel and the audio just starts coming through before it can even find the mute button, and it's terrible.
Letter M is the mute for YouTube. Just a heads up.
Oh yeah, I'm waiting for it to like actually load so I can see anything, and it's just poof. Oh crap. So that, and last thing is Twitter, which should be coming through just fine. Oh yeah, perfect. And a little retweet action, cool. So, we're good. Kurt, do you have tea?
Coffee. Yeah.
Coffee?
I refilled. I've been basically mainlining coffee for the past 3 months.
I've had to cut back on mine, but I found in my pantry, I have this Mexican tea that I bought.
And here's my fluent in sarcasm.
Very nice. Have
Cheers.
some happy little trees. Cheers.
No, I flip between coffee and tea myself.
I usually like to stick with like coffee in the morning and tea in the afternoon. Tea seems to be gentler on my stomach in the afternoon, acidic wise, but I can't have it first thing in the morning on an empty stomach because of the tannins. It'll just start to make me queasy.
Mm-hmm.
It took me forever. I think only this last year I figured out that it's tannins that do that. So
Interesting. I drink a lot of green tea and
Okay.
Yellow tea type thing. I stay away from the black teas because I stayed up till 5 in the morning one time because I just drank one at like 3 in the afternoon. I'm like, oh, I'll be fine. I'll sleep. No.
Jeez. Yeah. I have a plethora. It's one of the like odd fussy things that I do like is some nice loose leaf tea. And I'll buy from this company called Rakuten Tea. And it's exceptional stuff. They source it from like post-conflict areas.
Oh, nice.
So places like Laos, Cambodia, some Colombian places in Africa. So like some of the stuff that's sourced from northern African countries, it's very similar to like what you'd find in Iraq and the Middle East.
Okay. Very nice.
So that stuff's really tasty, but it's just neat to see like the different varieties of something like that around the world, and it's my fussy thing.
Well, whenever I'm down your way, I'll definitely have to have a cup with you.
Oh, I got plenty of it. All right. So, if anybody is unfamiliar, Two Geeks Talking is a really great podcast that is just, Kurt does an exceptional job of helping to promote indie comics. He's been kind enough to have us on a couple times. I'm going to drop some links here for everybody. I'm going to drop his YouTube channel first. There is just a treasure trove of past interviews on there. So, Kurt, you've been doing this for 15 years now.
Yeah, I just technically this is my 15th anniversary. I'm starting my 15th anniversary.
Very nice.
It was August 8th, 2008 is when I started, way back when. And it's been a heck of a ride. I have to admit, I don't think I would have said to myself, "Hey, what are you going to do in 15 years? Are you still going to do this show?" No. couple years at most, but I'm still here.
That's awesome. And it's funny how that stuff goes, right? You kind of just, some people are dead set. I'm like, I'm going to start this and I'm going to be doing it forever. I'm going to do it for decades. Or like, some people are like, I'm going to try this out. Probably won't last at all. And others are just, let's see how it goes. And, before you know it, you're a decade or two down the road.
Yeah, I can't even remember my 10th anniversary, to be honest. I think 15th was more of a milestone for me in the sense that it was like, I've been doing this for so long that not only has my host changed, but technology has changed from when we were doing it back with TalkShoe and 64 hertz audio, and now we're into video and you know, multiple hundreds of interviews at comic conventions, thousands at most. I mean, I've lost count actually after all this time.
I can't imagine how many hours that is. But that is a really interesting thing, though, is that how it's bridged so many different platforms and technologies.
Yeah.
Right? For all the people who can't really fathom it, that 15 years ago, broadband internet was still kind of like just getting to be saturated and expected to be in most homes, right?
Yeah.
Wi-Fi 15 years ago, so we're talking about
Non-existent.
2007. Yeah, that was pretty sparse. I can remember 2009 going to Panera all the time and like logging onto their Wi-Fi and thinking it was like the greatest thing in the world.
Yeah, yeah, for me it was well, being up in Canada, we had broadband, but we didn't have the same extent of a network as the United States. And so I had in my area, I'm about half hour outside of a major city down south here, southern Ontario, I should say, and I had DSL for 10 of my 15 years and at 6 megabytes a second. So megabytes,
Yeah.
not gigabytes, not anything like that. I'm still waiting for fiber in this area. It's that bad. So
One of the things that's got me to buy the house that we did was that it was one of the few areas around Buffalo that had FiOS.
nice.
And Verizon was supposed to pretty much blanket all of Erie County with FiOS, and they stopped after a handful of municipalities. So even before pandemic, I was working from home most of the time, and I was like, okay, I want that. I kind of need it. And boy, did I not even realize how much I was going to need the FiOS. So
Yeah, it's something that we have a fiber connection that's 1,200 feet away, and the Bell is not connecting it to any households whatsoever. It's just crazy, but
gosh,
whatever. I'll get it when I get it.
yeah. So what do you think some of the most exciting changes that you've seen have been, and technology-wise, or just as comics themselves have evolved in that time?
There's been a lot, to be honest. I mean, back in 2008, if we want to take a brief technological journey, um, audio podcasting was just getting started. We were just kind of seeing it. We were seeing Apple, iTunes really kind of trying to be the podcasting platform, even though they weren't hosting anything whatsoever. But they were the only real streaming service of an audio podcast. Uh, Fast forward about 3 or 4 years, YouTube was just getting started as well too, or they were in the process of getting started. So video was now on the table, but the technology of the video cameras, in the
Mm-hmm.
market were not that good. You had at most maybe 480p,
Yeah.
maybe 720 if you're spending 3 to 4 grand on a video camera, and then you didn't have the audio to back it up. So you didn't have any real decent like recorders, voice recorders to do like simple one-on-one. So you were relying on services like Skype, like
Mm-hmm.
TalkShoe, like um, I think Gmail or Google Chat as well too. They
Yeah.
had a video. They were just getting into a video portion as well. So there was slowly building up those technological processes that we know and love, today. But now we have streaming. We have at least 5 or 6 different platforms for audio podcasts in
Mm.
general. Spotify, YouTube has a version of it, I believe, of a bunch of other things as well too. But it's just so amazing to see that we're on a webcam on StreamYard, on Twitch, on YouTube, on all of these other platforms, doing a chat when I used to have to deal with Skype and a really crappy audio connection.
It is amazing. It's really, it made it much more accessible. Like we were saying before, we went live. I would, in 100 years, never be able to wrap my head around some of the more advanced ways to do all this, right? I don't have the technical chops. I don't have the multimedia experience. I don't understand the audio aspects, the finer parts of what it would take to be an audiophile. And this is just making it so easy to have something like a StreamYard where it's like, all right, send out a link to somebody. They click it, they come in, I click a button to add them into the little chat here, and we just talk.
Yep.
Like, it is exceedingly easy. And there's a lot of other things that you could really go wild with the different, like OSB stuff, all the other programs that Twitch is compatible with alone.
Exactly. Yeah. And then you have, you have your cutscenes as well in between. You have your filters. You have, you have graphical cutscenes to flip between, different viewpoints, to make things more seamless, to make things more beautiful and graphical, to fit your theme of a show. You have the fact that you have this on Twitch and that you have this streaming on Twitter, and you have all these other multiple connections into this particular stream specifically is just amazing, because you're now expanded your reach way more than if you were just stuck on, I need a host, I need to upload this to, say, YouTube, and now I have to now promote it that way. In this case, we're just live promoting as we're going. It's just incredible. I love it.
For sure. This was always one of the things that, as Chris and I formulated our idea for Band of Bards, a lot of it, the original concept centered around podcasting and doing interviews. So this was always something that it kind of gave me fits trying to figure out and wrap my head around how I was going to do it. And like, who else do we need to have involved to help with this? And gosh, this just does make it so easy for a technical dum-dum like me to be able to do something.
But it was just like that for me when I was first starting doing Two Geeks Talking, or TGT webcomics, back in 2008. I had no knowledge whatsoever of the ability to do a podcast. There was not many resources out there, free resources, I should say, that you could kind of ask and figure out, how do I do a podcast? You had to literally trial and error. And from doing 2-hour interviews at the beginning of Two Geeks, of TGT webcomics, filing it down to like an hour after 15 years. Well, maybe not after 15 years, but we had long-winded conversations where we were just doing live streams, and we were doing a live podcast that anyone could call into and be a part of and listen live, because that's the platforms we have. And we didn't do any editing either. That was the major thing. We did not edit. And I'm editing now after 15 years. I'm actually editing over the past couple of years because of the pandemic. I'm actually editing video interviews and editing it like that. So if and when the podcast comes back, more when than if, at least I have audio that is clean enough that I could just simply upload, and away we go, and there's no interruption. And that's another conversation I'm still trying to figure out to this.
So, if anybody watching is unfamiliar, or is trying to figure out how to promote their own indie comic, do you want to chat maybe a little bit about what a creator can do to help themselves? And obviously, I'm going to drop the link for your own calendar
Hmm.
and we'll talk about the kind of two formats that you do.
Sure.
So Kurt makes it exceedingly easy to even just, you know,
Schedule.
schedule and come on to his show. The link I just popped there is for the like the main long form
Hmm.
calendar, and then there's a rapid fire
Yeah.
show as well. I'm gonna drop that link, but you basically just go there, find a day and time that works for you. There's a bit of information just to put in about like yourself, what your project is that you're trying to promote.
Yeah.
You put yourself on the calendar. Could not be easier. We tell the bards all the time, go. If
Yeah.
you know what your schedule like is your best yourself, you know, do this, fits in nice for your own schedule and your own workload, and you will have a great interview. That's for sure.
Well, one of the main things that there was a couple of reasons why I did this. One was because I wanted to be more organized, and if you're decided to be a host of an interview show, whether it's a podcast or streaming, and we'll talk about the comic side of things as well too. Uh, the reason why I had this was because I was getting too many emails back and forth, and you just lose communication, you lose the chain, you lose just a connection that you have when it's just a matter of, okay, create a form that works for you. What key information do you need? Put it into this Calendly link and then send that off instead. The only reason why I have two formats, the original Two Geeks Talking long format and the rapid fire, was because I got lucky and Twitter allowed a one of my posts to go live instead of stifling it like Twitter does usually. And I said, okay, well, here's my Calendly link, and if you want to schedule yourself, go ahead. So that's how the long format got basically booked until October of this year. I still have some spaces available in November and December, but those are filling up fast. So those that want to be on a more in-depth interview, the long format is definitely available for you. For those that want to do maybe promote a Kickstarter campaign or anything like that, that's what the rapid fire is for, kind of specifically because a lot of people were messaging me saying, hey, I have a Kickstarter, can I get on your show in July or August? And I'd be like, here's the rapid fire link, let's promote yourself as the best of our ability. So for those that are watching this and listening to this as guests that want to come on shows like Band of Bards and like Two Geeks Talking, the best way to do that is to be able to talk about yourself as a creative person, to be able to talk about yourself as a writer or an artist or both, if you happen to be have multiple hats, and to be able to talk about yourself as a person. And I know a lot of people, and this has not changed in 15 years. A lot of creative people are introverted, and they find it very difficult to talk about themselves. But here's a secret: I'm introverted as well too. I just hide it very well. Uh, it took me 61 episodes of the show, podcast form, to find my voice. And to be a creative person, whether you're a talk show host or whether you're a comic creator or whatever you may be, it's difficult. It is very difficult. You actively do not want to share anything about yourself because you feel odd or weird or awkward about it. And in reality, these shows are platforms for you to promote yourself. So if you're not, think of it like a comic convention. If you're behind your table promoting your comic, you want to be as active as you can be interacting with people. This is just another form of that. So if you have a rhythm or a groove at a comic convention, kind of transition that maybe into Two Geeks Talking as a guest as well, and same with Band of Bards.
Yeah, and going along with that, you don't want to wait until a convention that you've spent money to table at and spent money on materials to look good to realize, oh no, I don't know how to just talk and be well understood. I get flustered, I speak too quickly, I speak too quietly. I get nervous and I won't make eye contact, or like these types of things can also be really great practice for when you do get to a table, and it really matters. Like, you need to make the most of each day you're at a con. Um, can you hear my dogs yowling?
Yeah, I can hear it.
Let me shut my door.
That's all good. I'll keep talking, but yeah, I think these shows are also good because I usually like to have a couple of minutes before I start recording the actual interview and just talk,
Yeah.
because the best way an introverted person can get comfortable with themselves and with the person that they're talking with is just to talk. And so a lot of times it comes down to, what are you passionate about as an introverted person? Sure, you're passionate about the comic, but what other interests do you have that is really, that you're really like excited to talk about? Those are things that I like to bring up during the conversation as well too. And in fact, I've started doing, when time permits it, overrated, underrated segments based on the actual what people like. So I had a couple of interviews. I had an overrated, underrated 80s, 90s edition of TV and movies.
Cool.
I had overrated, underrated. I'll be doing an overrated, underrated of anime and manga of things as well too. So, something to break the ice. That's all these conversations really are. And I think, I hope I've been doing people justice in terms of coming on the show and talking with them and showcasing themselves. I try to make their answers as clear and as clean as I can when I do the editing process, because it's not about me as a host, it's about yourself as a guest, and I want to showcase you, whoever you may be, in the best light possible.
I think you do an exceptional job of that. I'm reticent to watch my own interviews. Part of it you should, at least as you start out, because you kind of have to watch that and self-critique a bit. It's not so much about, I want to see myself on a podcast, but watch that and see what the audio sounds like. Do you need to be closer to your microphone? Do you need a pop sheet? Do you need a new microphone? Or how's it, think of those things, and then kind of watch yourself. See what your body language are like. Do you say, do too many things like that, right? Like, there's a little bit of study in that, and that's a little bit that really you should think of it as going into your craft. Because as you're making comics, you also have to sell them, and this is part of selling them.
Yeah, and I think those that, like everything else, like what you do when you first started, whatever comic you may have created, your first page was never the best. You're never going to release what exactly you always started working on. You're going to fine tune it and hone your skills and hone your craft and hone your comic to its best of its ability, so that you can promote and sell it. And it's the same thing with talking. And if you're not a talker, I mean, quick conversations with your friends, think of it as a one-on-one conversation with your best friend type deal, and think of it that way, because we only have an hour to speak type situation. And so make this as a one-on-one conversation with your best friend. If you can keep in that mindset, maybe that will get you a little more comfortable in talking. And it's not to say that it's an easy process. It never is. But I think out of the 15 years, there's only been maybe a handful that I can think of that the person has maybe just not felt comfortable enough. And it's just, they've said what they needed to say, and it's short and direct to the point, and that's perfectly fine as well too. But maybe a couple of years later, they come back on and they're a little different. Who knows? Yeah. And maybe they found their voice eventually. So
it really is a process. There's no shame about having some pre-written notes. Not that you should just be reading directly off of a note sheet verbatim, but if you know that you are, like I said, a natural talker, you don't just have the gift to gab. There is absolutely nothing wrong with having, sitting down for a bit beforehand, thinking about, these are the things I need to make sure I talk about. I need to make sure I mention this stuff. these are key. This is some key information, like the pre-order code for my comic, the date of release, the date that the Kickstarter goes live. Like,
Right.
write that stuff down. Just have it there, and maybe you don't even look at it, but having that fallback should make you feel a little bit more comfortable, and eventually you won't need to keep looking down at your sheets anymore.
Yeah, and I mean, it comes back to, do you have your elevator pitch? Do you have a short blurb about what you're creating and what you're doing? Talk about your art team as well. If you're stuck, if you happen to have multiple people on your team, there's many different avenues you can go on to divert away from yourself if you're uncomfortable at that particular moment, so that it's not just dead air. You're just showcasing who else you're working with. There's different avenues you can figure out that works best for you. And it's always wonderful to see your process for when you started to where you are currently. I mean, it just depends on the type of show you're on.
Yeah, there was a great point about when somebody isn't super comfortable talking about themselves, talk about your team. That's always an easy thing, because even a super introverted person almost always finds it easy to talk about other people in a positive way, right? not to gossip about people, but say, oh, this is my team. Let me tell you about them. Let me tell you about how great it is to work with this artist. Let me tell you about the things that our letterer really adds to the comic and make the pages just pop out even more. Do that, and it's a method to get yourself comfortable, because after doing that for a bit, you realize you forgot that you're on camera, that you're on a podcast somewhere, that people are watching you, because you're just talking about people that you enjoy hanging out with and doing stuff with.
Yeah, definitely. And it comes back to experience. Once you experience your first show or your first interview, and if you happen to do it on either Bardcast or Two Geeks Talking, by all means, if you get the itch and the bug to do another one, then find another show and schedule yourself and get your name out there. Because while social media is great and all, I mean, you're one voice out of 7 billion creative people in the world. So the more you can get yourself out there on other shows, other podcasts, video or audio, whatever the case may be, the better you'll be in terms of promoting yourself, and the better chance you'll have at coming back if you've created book 2 or 3 or your series type situation. So it's practice, experience, and staying passionate about what you're creating in terms of your comics is the best way that you can have a good time with what you're creating.
Sounds good. I apologize for having to check my phone there. Saw a bunch of texts from my wife. Some kind of creature in the backyard, or don't know if there's a coyote in the area.
Oh, that's not good.
Yeah, and she swears the other day that she saw it. I was in our little cornfield patch garden area. So when I popped up and I saw very briefly this like little fluff of brown jump into the wood line, I swear it was just a big jackrabbit. But she's like, no, it was the size of a fox, but very tan. I'm like, oh no, don't tell me the coyote's here. Scoping out the chickens.
Jeez.
Oh God, that's all I need.
See, you learn wildlife as well on the show too. That's wonderful.
You know what? I struggle to stay on message, which you probably have gathered from our previous conversations. I do like to just kind of stream of consciousness, let my brain flow. I will go down a gardening rabbit hole and I'll talk about it all day long if somebody doesn't steer me back into the right direction.
There's nothing wrong with that whatsoever. As long as you're not like my mother killing a cactus, it's all good.
Oh boy. One of these days, I think we are going to have like a comics and gardening episode, because I found that a lot of people in comics that enjoy gardening. And to me, it makes sense because, you're sitting here at a desk, you're sitting in front of a screen all the time, in any capacity, right? Whether you're writing, whether you're drawing, coloring, lettering, whether you're the dopey business guy trying to write contracts and figure out how to sell something, like, you need to step away and get yourself into nature to just get yourself feeling a little bit better, get a little bit of vitamin D, and you know, keep your yeah, exactly. You got to keep your brain fresh. You can't just keep plugging away, plugging away. You know, it's one of those self-sustainment things that a lot of us are bad at because we just get into a groove and want to keep working and not interrupt the flow that we're in. And it can be really difficult at times to recognize when you do need to step away. So,
Well, the burnout factor too happens. I mean that's definitely prevalent in whatever creative industry. And I know I had a full year of just burnout because I was trying to complete a double major in communication
oh my
media and
God.
film and visual arts, while also being a TA in three of my communication classes, while
Jeez.
also doing the podcast and show. I was still doing interviews while going to university, and also getting a minor in computer science as well. So I mean, I was burning myself out. So I took, I think, a year off actually.
Yeah, I don't blame you. Holy cow. But where I think the gardening aspect comes in is that you're still like doing some kind of active work, whereas a lot of us have a hard time just sitting and relaxing to read a book for leisure or just watch something.
Yeah.
So it allows you still some activity, but it's, you know, a 180 in terms of what that activity is. Getting your hands dirty, doing a little bit of manual labor, you know, being outside, just listening to nature. It's very rejuvenating, and like, the more I think about it, the more it makes sense to me why so many folks in comics are drawn to gardening. So,
Or like drawing gardening.
so one of the things I think a lot of creators out there are often wondering is, you know, what, not just how do I talk about my comic and how do I talk about my project on a podcast, but like, how do I even approach the hosts? You know, how do I approach the people who are, you know, looking for guests and doing it in a way that I get their attention, but not annoying? There's a fine line, right? Because some people will just continuously badger someone until, you know, they either get on a show or they get told in a very rough way to pound sand.
It's difficult. I mean, as a host, like if I were a comic creator and also did a show like what you do, Tim, with the broadcast here, I could understand that side of things a little better, probably. But as for let me backtrack. As for approaching podcasts and shows are always looking for guests. That's a given, no matter what it is. Twitter is the best way I found personally in order to connect with these types of people. The reason why I started the Calendarly schedule was because I quite literally was getting so many messages on Twitter of people asking or DMing, you know, hey, can I be on your show? I have a Kickstarter, or I have a comic, or I have this and this and this, and really it just got to the point where I was just getting flooded, and I needed a way to separate myself from that. I needed a way to be able to give myself that buffer that I needed, because I could spend hours answering all of these questions and copying and pasting the same link when simply putting the Calendarly link in a tweet or so every week, maybe just to kind of refresh people's memory. And it really comes back to giving the guests something simple to fill out. And as a comic person that is creating something that wants to get on a show, if they don't have a way to schedule, usually their website is the best way to do that. Maybe they'll have a forum, maybe they'll have a contact about us, or a contact information, or something along that line to kind of approach in that regard. Maybe they'll have a page on their website that specifically says want to be a guest, and it'll give you to a contact form. But you should keep trying. Find that line between badgering and a cease and desist letter, and figure out what works best for you. I think a lot of shows nowadays are doing the Calendarly schedule as a way to make things easier, not only for themselves but for the guests as well too. And that way, there's, as I said previously, there's nothing lost in translation. There's no email chain where, I'm when am I on the show, or I didn't get the link, or everything like that. Although you still will get those types of emails, depending on how far ahead they've scheduled.
Yeah, those are great insights. You often hear some horror stories from other folks or other people in media, or maybe somebody that hosts like a comics review site, so forth, and people just continuously hound them. Hey, when are you going to have my review up? When is it? I need it by now. Like, everybody is doing their best in indie comics, and it's hard, I think, sometimes to take that locus of attention off of yourself and your own situation, and understand that is more or less the same boat that most other folks doing this stuff are in. That applies to everybody, up and down, from the people making the books, the people trying to sell them, the people trying to publish them, the people trying to promote them. There are a lot of folks doing these things because they love it, not because they're making a ton of money off of it.
Yeah. And I even for me, I'll still get messages on past guests saying, when is my interview being released? And it's a good reminder for me. Don't get me wrong. It is a good reminder to showcase, oh yes, I have it scheduled in my editing list in terms of when I can get to it to actually edit. That's the major thing, because what a lot of people don't realize is when they see a podcast or a show, they assume automatically that there's 4 or 5 people working. It's not the case for me. I'm one person doing the promotion, doing the editing, doing the interviewing, doing the scheduling, approaching guests as needed, emailing guests to find the image assets that I need to actually put together the images I need in order to get your interview prepped and ready, as well as your title images. There's a lot of templates that I've had to create because I have a process now. And the sooner that you can provide the images, like for your comics, or provide a headshot, or provide one that, if I zoom into it, it's not going to take up 3/4 of the actual image or whatever. There's a reason why in the Calendly links for both the long format and the rapid fire show that I'm asking specifically for 3 to 4 images of your comic or entertainment, whatever, and a headshot from the waist up. I have a process and a template. I need that information. And so if I don't receive that, it just delays your interview from being released, and to the point that I may have to reapproach you. So if you can get that to the host of the show you're approaching as a comic person, then that makes things a heck of a lot easier. Some of the times that host may not actually need anything from you, and it's just a simple matter of we're just going to do a live stream and away we go, and we'll have our own internal image assets. But a lot of people now are actively creating their own title images because that's what YouTube requires and that's what Twitch requires. You need to be different than everyone else that has similar shows to yours.
That's a lot of really great information.
Sorry for the overload.
No, it's not. That's a lot of stuff that people, like, you almost kind of subvert some of the questions I've got, right? Because that's one of the very good things to ask about, right? Is what are the things that people don't know that they should? What are some of the maybe non-obvious types of things, or things that people can do to help them by helping you. Um, you just covered so much of that. I mean, that's good. That's such great information that it you don't want to have to learn all of that through experience as a creator. You want
Right.
somebody to kind of help give you those pointers and a little bit of mentoring, so
But
that
but
you.
but think of it like this, though. Think of it as if you were submitting your comic to a publisher, or think of it as if you were submitting it to a comic convention. You know, the comic convention may want to see your website as well too, but they also may want your email address. They may want a couple of images of yourself if they have a program or whatever like that. If they're a small enough convention, then they'll ask for a headshot. They'll ask for an image of your comic, etc. It's things that if you were to put together a media kit or press
Mhm.
kit, I mean, that's kind of the same type of assets that any podcast or any show would require as well too. And in fact, it actually organizes you as a creative person because you're giving your images, you're giving your headshot, you're giving your website, you're giving your contact information, but you're also giving, say, your log line or your tagline of your
Mm.
comic, or you're giving a quick summary that even you can use during the interview itself to kind of keep yourself grounded if you're not really a talker about your own work. So it's little things that if you ever do a quick search on Google or YouTube for how to create a press kit, convert that for film and media to your comic, and you're going to be 100 times more accessible in
Mhm.
terms of getting on shows. I can guarantee that.
Yeah, and it's nice because so much of that, as you said, it overlaps. You can use the same stuff for pitches and submissions. So, and it's just great repetition that reinforces itself. And the more you do it, the more you get used to it, the better of a well-rounded creator you are. Because then you're not just, I'm a really good writer, but there's a lot more to making comics than just doing that individual job. Unless you are, a staff writer at Marvel or DC, like where that's all that's expected of you is to come in and write. Um,
Yeah.
just that's completely,
There's
yeah, completely different worlds there.
but there's so much more that you can do. I mean, you're always going to improve because you're not going to use the same template every time. You're going to fine tune it and hone it as you create more and more comics. Your initial one, maybe a base template that you see that I'm like, okay, well, this is all the time I have to put this all together.
Yeah,
My next one, oh, I know what I did wrong here. I'm gonna fine tune it for this next one. I'm gonna,
yeah,
you know, maybe do a graphic for the actual title images.
yeah.
I'm gonna do whatever I want to showcase this, like give it a real eye catching approach.
Create your own personal logo, or like
Yeah,
all those small little incremental changes. You know, it build takes time for any of this stuff to build. Yeah, we building a small publisher. Like
hmm
every time we come out with another title, every time we have a new crowdfunding campaign, there's small tweaks that you make, and you just start building yourself up in whatever your creative endeavor is.
yeah,
The, and then you start to find where you can reuse these things so that the amount of time you put into developing it isn't just all spent on a single sole use. You can reuse the things, make them more valuable, make the time that you spent on it or the
more
money you
efficient.
spent on it. Yeah.
Yeah, totally. I completely sorry. I can see your train of thought. So but I definitely understand that because when I say I have templates, I have a template for my title images and my lower thirds, my nameplate on the bottom there. Uh, Literally, I have one for every year I've created it. So if, say, I have a past guest, I can just copy the initial template I had, bring it over to my current year, and maybe I've done something different between those years. Maybe I found a better font, or maybe I found a better format to make the text pop, during the actual interview. Maybe I could just reuse the actual headshot itself if the person is still the same, and make it, one less thing I have to ask the guest for. And you know as the years go on, take a different headshot of yourself in different angles. I mean, we're already doing selfies as it is, so it shouldn't be that much more different. Just find good lighting, a good angle. Make sure you don't
Eh,
have a double chin, and away you go.
some of us, you've seen the headshot I've sent in.
Yeah, I know. I need a
Yeah.
better one.
Oh my God. I need to just spring and get some actual professional ones done because my arms are too stubby to get a good.
Yeah. Hey, you have a new webcam, use it.
Yeah, I'll have to actually dive in. I have figured out how to do some.
There you go.
Yes, this has been too much fun for me. It's these stupid little things like this are what entertains my simple brain.
I
He
love
said,
it. Oh, that's
oh.
way zoomed out.
Yeah, and you get a nice panoramic view. You can see my whiteboards.
That's awesome. See, hey,
Yeah.
you're looking at his creative process before even he sees it.
Hmm. And the little mess down there that is the dog's bed.
Here's a little secret for me. That's why I have a green screen behind me.
Yeah, you know, this is my way of humble bragging. You get to see my bookshelf, and I like to see the model planes in the background myself.
Oh, that's good. Hey, you have to have
Yeah, and,
a good view.
yeah, and it reminds me of the hole that I put in the wall when I hung the shelves that I really need to fix.
The one behind the B-52 there.
Yeah. I originally the shelf you see like directly behind my head that's been cut in half and rehung. It had been going the entire length of that back wall until we had the new HVAC installed, so I had to change it up. But I went about hanging the order that I brought those shelves in was just completely wrong, and I was tired and it was hot and I was sweaty, and I tried to just force something, and I forced it right through the damn wall. So,
Yeah, it's definitely a process.
yeah,
I think that I've had to do so many different changes, and if you look back at past interviews that I've had as well too, uh, you can tell what's been behind me. Like I have a nice couch that's behind me, and I have some paintings I did back in university for the
cool.
visual arts side of things. But I've been trying to clean up my place and trying to keep myself organized. And same goes for doing the show as well too. Like I have 20 interviews, maybe 17 interviews I still have to edit, and
Cool.
I want to get released this year. And my Friday is my scheduled release date on YouTube, and I still have to update the website as well. Like there's so many little things that people don't understand. While I appreciate the interviews themselves, and I appreciate the guests so much, because I wouldn't be doing this for 15 years without the guests that have been on the show, those that have been repeats and those that have become co-hosts, guest co-hosts, and things like that as well. And it's just been amazing to see their creative process, no matter who they may be and what walk of life they are currently in as well too. And it's so amazing just to see when they started, if they happen to be a first timer on Two Geeks Talking, and then 5-10 years later they come back on, and we kind of reminisce about where they were to where they are. It's such an amazing experience.
Definitely. I always enjoy when someone does have some of their own books out. I keep staring at the Captain Canuck.
Yeah, that was a funny one, because the I met the author at Fan Expo Canada, and this is the complete compendium or omnibus of it, and he signed it.
Nice.
And so it was a couple of years back they did a animated series of Captain Canuck, and two of the actors were Chris Holden Reed and Paul Amos,
Okay.
who at the time were from Law School, and they've done other things. Paul Amos has been the voice of one of the Assassin's Creeds in England. Sorry, Paul, forgot which one it was. And Chris Holden Reed has acted in a bunch of other TV series as well too.
Very
Just
cool.
amazing, both talented, amazing people.
Nice.
And so got the author, the original creator of that, to sign it, and I have to get him back on the show. Hopefully he's still around.
Very cool. So, in your 15 years of doing this, what's What's probably your favorite part?
Every time I have an interview, unless they're a returning guest, I think I'm fortunate to be talking to someone new. I think that's what keeps me excited after all this time because I don't know who the guest is unless I've either actively followed them on Twitter or if I've actively seen their work online.
Mm.
Um, it's horrible to say as a host, probably, like I don't know who these people are, but it's true. I don't know who you are until you sign up for an interview.
Yeah.
Um, but that just means that it gives me time to research. It gives me time to look at your creative work that you do, and gives me time to see your style because I've seen so many styles over the past 15 years that have evolved from traditional manga to
Mm.
a mixture of Americanized comics and manga to traditional comics to motion comics to animation to so much has evolved. And the platforms that are available now are so amazing, especially digital comics these days. When I was doing at the very beginning of this, web comics were always on a website of someone's own personal website. There was no real, there was hosting, there was Drunk Duck and a bunch of others as well too, for those that remember it. And they were great. Those were wonderful, like portals into the person's comics. And other people just were doing individualized comics on their own websites. Perfect example: Penny Arcade, PvP, Mega Tokyo, Girl Genius Online, a bunch of others as well too. Um, Devil's Panties with Jenny Breeden. I could list thousands, quite literally. And so now that we have platforms like Tapas, like Webtoons, like Pocket Comics, and a bunch of others that I've seen and that I've subscribed to, uh, there's so much more reach these days than just having a website. You can just get accepted by one of these digital platforms, and now you're connected to millions of people all over the world. It's not just North America. It's not just the Asian countries or Europe or whatever. You're connected to everyone that's accessing that platform.
Mm.
It's so amazing to see. I mean, just incredible.
Yeah. And there are new ones popping up all the time.
Mhm.
Yeah. So
My credit card doesn't like those.
gosh. Oh. Man, this has been, I think, one of our best podcasts, but to be completely honest. Sometimes if you've watched it before, you see how sometimes I struggle. Because it's the end of my day, and it's sometimes those Fridays, right? You just get into Friday itself. It's harder. There's a lot to do on Friday. Um, it's a joy to talk with you all the time, Kurt. And I think what you had to share tonight was incredibly valuable stuff for comics creators to understand. How you've helped, the conversation about press kits has me thinking some more and just reevaluating what we include on our own and how to have those prepared ahead of time. And, as you start to prep a new comic, whether it's your own self-published thing or, for us, it's a way to just put that whole process that you continually refine. You almost have like your own little checklist of things to prepare for yourself as you are starting to launch or build or start promoting. So,
Well, but there's other things you can do. While the press kit is awesome, and every person in the entertainment industry should have something for either yourself as an actor or actress, or for your comics or for your series or whatever you're creating. Everyone should have something like that. I have to update mine. It's been a while since I've done it for my own self, and I definitely need a new headshot. So I understand where you're coming from as well too. But the things like trailers, like there's a lot of times where you could put together a mini trailer for your comic as well too, as quick basic like you don't have to go crazy on the animations, just in and outs and fades and whatever. Ken burns it for all I care, but I mean you can at least
trying to think.
put something together, and it's a new visualization of your comic.
I think I have an app that I've used. InShot InShot's been it's a simple thing. If I can use it, it's simple, right?
Okay.
That's a real nice way to take stills and string together, very simple trailer for, you can make it a 20-second thing that's going to grab someone's attention, which again, maybe that's all you want to put together, 15-20 seconds for a host, to show them that. You can go a little bit longer with it. There's a whole bunch of free musics that are available, so it's you can do all these things. Don't feel overwhelmed if you don't know them all or how to do them all. It's just, that's the process of making comics. You pick up a new skill every time you go out and make something.
Yeah, and I think, and this is something that I found recently, and especially with comics specifically, and the InShot as well too. If you look at Tapas, what they do to promote their web comics digitally, I don't know if they have any, like, you'll see them on Instagram, like as just going through Instagram or whatever. You may see them in other games or whatever the case may be. Look at how they do their quick 30-second motions and how they format their text, where it's just a tease and then showcasing your characters, and even looking at how to do a quick 30-second movie trailer. It's the same concept, only with still images. So find what works for you, take the time to do it for your comic. Yes, it'll take time, but once you get it done and once you start sharing that on social media, especially in short format bursts, you could post it on TikTok, Twitter, Instagram as stories, as a way to promote your comic and yourself, and it will get a lot more traction than if you just did a simple post hoping people to see it, because people love animation and movies and just something that's focused in on what exactly you want to promote. They don't want fluff. They don't want anything like that. Showcase what you need to show, and you're going to get a lot more people going towards your comics and your products.
Fantastic. We're about at the hour mark. We don't hold hard and fast to any time slots, but usually that's about, that 60 to 90 minute range. We all start to kind of like tap out.
When I first started doing 2-hour interviews, I was tapping it way before the 2-hour mark.
I believe it. We've hit a couple that have gone long, and I'm like, I just can't do it anymore. I'm old. But I try to be respectful of my guests' time as well, though. We don't have great TGIF TV program to splurge on Friday nights anymore, but
well, that's what streaming's for.
Mm-hmm.
I got to catch up on shows myself. So
I went back and I found Family Matters on one of the services, and I started it from the first season. I didn't realize that Urkel wasn't part of it from the get-go.
No, I think it was season 2.
Yeah, and I've gotten through like the first maybe 4 or 5 episodes. I'm like, this sucks.
But at the time, it was back to back with Perfect Strangers and everything, and Fresh Prince of Bel-Air and a bunch of other, just at the time, very solid shows.
Yeah, they don't get. I'm always going back and watching the same stuff over and then getting upset that you don't have great sitcoms anymore. Like, that was just a string of several of them on every network all the time.
Yeah, those such amazing shows back then. But I mean, one guest you should have on is Raylan Grant, if you haven't had a chance to. Okay. He's a very talented writer for film and TV and comics. I had an amazing chat with him as well too, and his background, and he does his own show as well. His background is all 80s and 90s.
Oh man,
everything. It's cool. Just amazing. So
Y2K ruined everything. I don't care.
Wait, Chris Jericho? No, he was fine.
Oh gosh. All right, see, like I said, you hit the hour mark and you start to go off the rails. Any last comments? Any last
Yeah.
words?
As always, Tim, thanks for having me on. I'd love to do this in a year or so whenever you want me back on. But you can, of course, find Two Geeks Talking on our website, tgtmedia.com, or twogeekstalking.com. That's the word two, not the number two. Of course, on our YouTube channel, which is just down below there, which is youtube.com/tgtmedia. Of course, you can find me on Twitter if you have questions or if you want to get on the show and you want just a direct connection. Toss me a tweet. I'll forward you the Calendarly link as well too for both shows. Find what works for you. Currently, we have November and December as of this interview available. Maybe some in late October, but that's a little tricky. And then we're booking into 2023. I know it's only 4 months away, but still, look to the future. See what you're going to be promoting, because I already have one interview scheduled in 2023. So you could be next if you want to be on Two Geeks Talking.
Now that right there is 15 years of experience. That just rolled off the tongue so smooth. I struggle to put two sentences together. Awesome.
Thanks so much, Jen. Appreciate it.
No problem. So we end the broadcast with a public service announcement from a firefighter. I will just I say this again, not to pat myself on the back, but just for reassurance. I am a firefighter here in my hometown. So this isn't like some nonsense PSA you're getting. Summertime's here. We're well into summer. We're almost looking at the fall. So people tend to have a lot more fires when they're outside. I'll just say, make sure if you're going to have a fire, have an extinguisher nearby. Have a pail of water nearby, some way to quickly extinguish that fire. And know how to tell when that fire is out. Like Smokey the Bear would say, douse it, cover it with dirt, and drown it again. Stomp on the thing. Just be mindful, because you don't want to have your fire pit wafting up to the dryer vent and catching on some lint, and then your house is up on flames. So practice good fire safety while you're out camping and while you're just enjoying a little bit of a fire in the evening outside your house. Hooray. All right. No fancy outro for us here. Thanks for joining, everybody. Thanks for everybody who's tuning in on the recorded version. We appreciate you. And we will be back next week with Steve Urena, who has Slowpoke's #2 out on Kickstarter right now. That'd be fun. All right, for everybody, enjoy your weekend.